Welcome to Sun, Sand, and Sold. I am Josh Tomey, joined as always by my co-host, David Haber. David, I've got good news and bad news. I'm going to let you pick which one.
Well, the bad news is you're wearing a fancy shirt that's going to clash with mine. 2
episodes in a row.
Yeah, I'm not happy.
I'm destroying the underlying fabric, the whole orientation of the show.
Don't you understand? I'm the color commentator, so I'm supposed to have the color and you're supposed to wear a neutral.
Now, I will note for you, however, both last week and this week, though I did do some florals, and I will admit to doing a floral again this week.
Yeah, but you got camo and white
but it is still relatively neutral. It's not,
Not happy. For
those of us who follow us,
have to complain.
For those of us who follow on social media, we actually did do a reel this past week just about your Patagonia shirt. So I hope I'm making up for it a little bit.
Right,
the editorial team sent that over. I said, absolutely, we're going to talk about David's shirt from Patagonia.
Well, today, this is a shirt that my wife bought for me at one of the discount stores. I don't know if it was Ross or somewhere else.
I think it's kind of a nice look. It's got a little bit of that.
Well, it has a pair of linen shorts that go with it.
Oh, it's a set.
But I figured,
Now that would have been a brave move to do the whole to do the set.
Shorts.
I think that would be. I think we're leading into a fashion episode. Is what I think we're. I think we're starting to head down that. We talk about.
You got Midtown with all those fancy stores.
Maybe we'll do a remote. I mean, Abraham, what do you think? We do a remote podcast from one of the stores in Design District. He's given us the thumbs up. I think we're going there. I got to get a camera on him soon too.
I want you to also know that I wore a limited edition Audemars Piguet today to go. The brown and gold watch to go with the beautiful tan pants and the.
Well, it makes me glad that we're going to be talking about one of Miami's newest ultra luxury boutique residences instead of affordable housing, because I just feel like that's just too much of a dichotomy when you bring out your limited edition AP watch and then we start talking about the way to make housing more affordable in Miami. But I digress.
I don't think Pagani is going to make us affordable housing.
I don't think Pagani is workforce qualified. We'll double check with the developer, Mickey, who'll be joining us on the show shortly here, but I don't think they're.
For those that don't know about the Pagani name, I looked it up and I will tell you it is higher end than Bugatti. And as I said to you off the air, I'm changing my name to Haberini so that I can charge twice as much for my hourly rate.
I don't know that. I mean, you've developed a name in this space now. I think you should probably just
stick with Haber.
Yeah, leave well enough alone. I think Haberini also sounds confusing. It sounds like it's made up.
Yeah, but Haberini pasta.
Al dente.
Al dente. Haberini pasta.
Okay, now here comes the cultural appropriation emails that we're about to get. So we're gonna move on. Celebrated Passover this past week. As always, the Haberini household were lovely hosts. And it's that time of year where, Passover also kind of marks it's that transition point. We're beginning to smell summer here in South Florida.
Well, we're starting to feel the heat.
It is warming up, as they say, which also means we've got F1 coming around the corner. Great lead into a car or car brand residence.
And they're very competitive this year. It's not just Max Verstappen. There's some serious McLaren, action going on there. And I will say on Passover, shout out to Lisa Haber for hosting 51 people in the backyard, and a shout out to God who provided us with great weather.
It was a beautiful first night of Passover.
Beautiful night. And we have Easter coming up and Good Friday. I always find it an interesting time of year when you have a combination of family events and religious events and cultural events. It's a pretty cool time of year to be in South Florida.
And I've started to think of this as a little bit of the gateway season in South Florida. This used to be the time of year that South Florida would empty, right? I mean, it would be sort of, you need to kind of get through Passover, start to head towards the end of April, and all of a sudden Miami would be, and I'm dating myself because obviously it's nothing like that anymore.
Well, now they have to stay here 6 months and 1 day. So they got to stay through the beginning of May or mid-May in order to get their time in. And for those that don't know, in order to be a Florida resident, you have to stay here for 6 months and 1 day.
And I think we'll hear again from the developer at Pagani Residences about, in some ways, that is also creating a shift in the way that residences are being designed. Less transient, more potentially 6 months in a day, all the way to year round. We're starting to see larger residences. We're seeing residents that are capable of supporting people, in a home.
And we're also seeing units that not only are bigger to accommodate people living there, full time, but you're seeing people wanting the luxury, the high end, which market continues to grow and continues to be a hot market as compared to the older units that are more difficult to sell now that you have to reserve, and people who are more on fixed income. I think this episode's going to be exciting and interesting to hear about Pagani Residences.
So I got to ask you then, from going to put your Haber Law hat on, you have to, over the last few years, have seen some of that shift in your clients. People
Absolutely.
who are here more, people who are invested in larger units for longer periods of time. What's changed? What difference has that made?
Well, interestingly, a lot of the units, and I think we're going to hear this from the developer of Pagani, a lot of the units in the older buildings on Brickell and, Sunny Isles and Miami Beach, and Coral Gables, they're units where there are 30 floors, 40 floors, and you have many, many units. And
hundreds.
A lot of the buildings are, in essence, investments. Downtown, there's a lot of units owned by people from South America, people from Europe, and they rent them out. And you don't have that necessarily high-end luxury because they're, in essence, condos that are rental units.
Right.
And
a lot of transient activity.
And I think what you're seeing, whether it's Jimmy Tate with St. Regis, or whether you're going to see it with Ritz-Carlton, or whether you're going to see it with Pagani, whether you see it with Lamborghini.
The 11 residences that are being launched later this year. Next year.
And, a lot of these branded residents are really high end in order to attract people who normally wouldn't have lived here full time, or at least become residents of South Florida. You're starting to see bigger units, more luxury, more white glove service. And I'll always go back to how you're going to get workers to get there. But excluding that problem of getting workers to these high-end residences, I think you're going to see more units with large balconies, large floor-to-ceiling, glass or, glazing systems. And you're going to see a lot of great views from all of these units.
Well, I got another one for you that seems to me like potentially a quiet problem, but that's rearing its head more and more now. When you have more buyers looking for larger units, more luxury, more service, and they also want to avoid the pitfall of these heavy special assessments that have been levied on associations that have not necessarily done the preventative maintenance work, have not done the capital repairs, it's got to be hard to market those units when you're in, as you said, 40, 50 floors of units, massive special assessment. The units are not as large. They were focused at a different time. Are those buildings in trouble? I mean, are they fundamentally in trouble when you've got a 1,200-foot unit that's facing a $200,000 special assessment in a high transient activity building? I mean,
I think that's problematic. I think, one of the things that I find as a construction lawyer in the condominium space is that Miami was all about putting it up and selling it as quick as you could, because the market had these tremendous up and down cycles. And, with all due respect to contractors, getting it up fast is not necessarily getting it up, with the highest quality, because you wanted to hit the market.
Right.
And you wanted to hit the timing of the market. But the market doesn't seem to be having the down cycle. It's like a continual, constant up cycle for high end. And I think you're going to find that some of these high-end residences are going to be built better than they were in the past. And presumably, with the maintenance cost for a high-end, you're going to see better maintenance and better long-term maintenance because the statutes that have been passed are requiring reserves to be paid, which previously could have been waived. And I think that the older buildings are in trouble. And I think you're seeing that in the pricing of older buildings. Those that are not going to be terminated, you're seeing the problems of people who did not reserve, didn't have the money, and now they're getting big special assessments that you're not going to see in these new residences.
Right. It also seems to me like, though, that we've seen a little bit of a mild depression in rent rates. We've seen, some headlines that says it's come down in Miami somewhere between 5 and 10% over the last year.
That's not enough. That's not enough for my children.
How did I know that was coming?
Well, I got to personalize it a little
that
bit.
The amount of rentals that have taken place in condos, ultimately, are going to be pushed upwards as a result of the special assessments, as a result of increased maintenance, and that there's going to be fewer, more affordable options in the middle of the market, which is, where
middle market's in big trouble. You're going to have more terminations of waterfront condominium complexes. Typically, I think you're going to see the big monolithic concrete structures, whether it's on Collins Avenue, whether it's in North Bay Village, whether it's in Bay Harbor, you're going to see, or Sunny Isles, you're going to see these buildings get taken down in terminations. Where are those people going?
Right.
I would tell you that my view is they're leaving Miami-Dade County.
Right.
They're not staying because there's nowhere for them to go.
And then even though we know it's sort of from a financial perspective, the economic base of Miami-Dade County has been elevated, the population's actually going down as a result of the housing shortage. We talked about we talked about it
with the mayor of Miami-Dade County,
and we talked about on our previous episode with Blue Nest and its founder, and talking about why people are seeking out alternatives much further south, much further west than historically.
I think you're going to have an up market for rental and an up market for luxury, and I think middle market is going to continue to suffer in South Florida, and that's all the way from Miami up to Palm Beach.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's also interesting, and we'll certainly talk to Mickey and the development team from Riviera Horizons on Pagani Residences about what's going on in places like North Bay Village, who are experiencing a renaissance of sorts. We're seeing the same thing in Bay Harbor. We're seeing smaller, what we would have called out of the way neighborhoods. Now we're realizing they're actually quite central, but maybe not, historically the site of some of that major development that we've seen in Miami Beach and Brickell, et cetera, Edgewater. And now we're seeing those areas get developed and what the impact of that is going to be, not only on neighboring competitive markets, but on the region as a whole.
And I think you're going to see the same thing in Fort Lauderdale and downtown West Palm Beach. I think you're going to see more luxury high rise, and you're going to see real problems for middle market buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to welcoming Mickey on. David, as always, it's lovely to see you in whatever colors you do bring to the table. And I will again apologize for my digression. We'll see if next week I start to.
Can you please start
to put it together a little bit? I'm just going to do something very gray and dull, something very Eastern Bloc looking for you.
Slightly muted. That's all I'm asking for. Slightly muted.
We're gonna do. Maybe we'll do a poll, and we're gonna let the viewers decide the way we should start dressing, and we'll see what the public opinion is on this, because I feel like I feel like I need to keep pace with you, to be honest. I've been left out of this a little bit.
I know, but I've never been a big supporter of public opinion. I kind of like my opinion better.
Your opinion wins. It's what makes you such a great attorney.
I know. I got to go with my opinion here. My opinion is you're too good looking as it is. If you don't go muted, I'm going to be like whitewashed right out of here.
Well, my opinion is it's time for a break. I'm Josh Tomey. As always with David Haber, you're listening to Sun, Sand, and Sold, or watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music,
and X.
There you go. We'll be right back.